Your average Rhamph encounter.
This one's mine, buddy. Frick you.
No, that's mine. Frick you.
Frick you, that's mine.
No, that's
Frick
mine.
you.
Frick you.
No,
No.
frick you. Wait,
MLS, frick
what's going
you.
on
Wait,
over there?
What? What's happening here?
You must be struggling. Kinda funny if you ask me.
Yeah, that's pretty funny. Hey, look at this, Dinkelberg. Excuse me, you're supposed to avoid the two.
Yeah, this guy stinks even without the plague.
Shouldn't we actually go and help? We'll get food then.
Yeah, you're right. Let's go help them. Dibs on the eye sockets.
But you had the eye sockets last time.
Oh my god, shut up.
Hello. So, how is everybody handling the update now? For purely biased reasons, Rhamph is the only thing that's really been able to pull me away from Baldur's Gate from these funny situations like this.
Washing my pits, this is the song when up. Aye, could a bloke not get any bleating privacy around here? Bunch of perverts, the lot of you.
So yeah, that happened. Now, as for balance, I don't usually like to talk on balance very often on any dino, but for Rhamph, yeah, I'd say it's a little overtuned in some aspects. I think the amount of debuffs and all that is fine, but being that it's so unkillable, I think it needs that to be tuned down a little bit, keeping the entire goblin aspect of the playable to be very annoying as it's designed around being. Yeah, keep that pretty much the same, but then make it so that it's easier to deal with. So, maybe something like cutting Lucky Feather's invincibility cooldown, timer in half. Instead of 10 seconds of invulnerability, make that maybe like 5 seconds or something like that. Along with what I said in the first Rhamph video for this TLC, getting rid of the healing while flying from Deep Claws, definitely. That way you keep the urgency of wanting to get rid of the Rhamph that's causing you problems, but not making it so almost, next to impossible to do so, outside of situations like this. Yeah, pot servers be potting. Also, have you ever wondered what would happen if a Rex ended up getting Frenzied Tear from Titan? Well, here's what it looks like. Here's it again in slow motion, because I thought that maybe was a bit too fast. And let's just say, this person, they must have found some pretty cool tech. Some sort of technique, because, hey, they were able to do it more than once. But that's enough of that. How about we get on to what this video is going to be about. So, I have a couple of funny clips, just playing with friends, a few funny little jokes, some attempts at thievery against me, of all people, trying to steal my trophies, how dare. And then we have a pretty interesting fight from the first day of the Rhamph TLC. I found it pretty funny, and I hope you do too. But lastly, I would like to encourage anybody who's interested in Path of Titans combat, just watching videos on that, to go check out morkrom, as he's been uploading a bit more lately, and from watching all of his, his streams whenever I get the chance, he is incredibly entertaining to watch, and let's just say you can learn quite a lot from watching his gameplay, especially if you are a fan of Tyranno Titan. So go do that. I promise you, you will not be disappointed. I'll chuck his link down in the description to his channel. But, with all that out of the way, I hope you all enjoy. God. Can you imagine when AI dinos come out and we have people going El Clanker Dino? Epic, epic, get away from the water! Ha, you fell for it. It's okay, I stole it back. Good. Lol. 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 Oh no, I'm lol spamming Kusa. But also you, yeah. You won't. Ah, and he did. Go on, do it. Mate, this Rhamph just attempted to steal it again, and I just did it right back. Go on, Rhamph. Come on, Rhamph. You've gotta. You're gonna have to use rat out on me, Rhamph. You know what? There you go. I feel bad for you. Feel bad for the Rhamph. There you go. Take the trophy. Just remember, Rhamph, you only got that out of my good graces. Oh no, a Sarko died, and now there's a Spino and Sarko here, and then there's Big Fish. And so for this clip here, I found this setup to be a little bit more of a meme, but either way, it's still a pretty funny synergy, and it's better than I would have thought, though you can't really push it too far. There is a cap to how far this synergy can go. And that is pretty much to stack up a bunch of cooldown reduction on whatever you want to just increase their attack speed. And so we're going to need to use ramps for this. So let's start off with Shared Rhythm. While latched onto another creature, reduces their ability cooldowns by 12.5% and stamina cost by 10%, and this stacks up to 4 times. And I'm sure that's mainly just because on any given dino, at most, there's only 4 slots, so you can only get 4 ramps onto it anyway. But the other ingredient for this is a Rex because it has Terrible Roar, a call that boosts the damage by 25% and reduces cooldowns by 25% for all Tyrannosaurs in your group. Does not stack. So in other words, it just gives itself a bunch of, cooldown reduction anyway. We only had 3 people available to actually be on Rhamph, so that means that 3 stacks of Shared Rhythm is giving us 37.5% cooldown reduction, but then we also have the Rex with his Terrible Roar that's also providing another 25%, so that brings up all the way up to 62.5% cooldown reduction for this Rex right here. After you go over that number, it doesn't really help anymore for the actual bite attack speed, but more just for the Terrible Roar cooldown. So here's the demonstration. That's a bit concerning. That's a little concerning. Oh no, the machine gun tail Rex is back, no! Now, with as much potential that this setup actually has, it also has quite a lot of risk for the Rhamphs. And kind of for the Rex, because for every Rhamph that you bring in, you could just bring in something else that does damage, right? Not only that, but every ramp just sitting on a Rex is just open to pretty much get its lucky feather
Stay
pop
on,
just like that, and it's
Epic.
kind of just out of commission after this fight. And lastly, it does actually have diminishing returns once pretty much the cooldown reduction or the cooldowns are shorter than the actual attack animation for the basic bite. So you're not really providing much with getting even more cooldown reduction. It's a very fun setup, and I really encourage using it, but don't expect the world. I died so often doing this. So for this one, I'm going to be going over a fun little fight that ended up happening on the day of the Rhamph TLC release. But first, let's go over what we had. So first off in the lineup, we have me, Cherry, and Tanks playing as Rhamphorinkus. And then, of course, we have Gooser and Epic playing as Hatzigopteryx. So we got a lot of flap flaps for this team. So starting off, we're making our way over to Salt Flats, and as I get there, I end up spotting a Tyranno Titan, an Aloe, and then also a Latin and some other Rhamphs. And so I end up trying to do Rhamph things and immediately pounce one of them, and it seems that they have recognized me, and this was funny to me.
Indo just went, Hanyo, stop being a fat chud.
I know Indo from talking in Baka chat quite a lot, so don't take it serious. So from knowing what is about to probably happen, the Titan starts making his way to Big Quill, just because they know that they're gonna go through a lot of plague. And so Gooser ends up jumping off of the high ground and end up going after the Aloe. Though the Aloe ends up going for Gooser first, and so Gooser ends up leading it over to a corpse and then activating Deathcrow, cutting the Aloe's armor in half. In other words, it's gonna just take double damage at this point for 30 seconds. And as this little chase continues, one of their Rhamphs have also pounced Gooser to stop him from actually trying to fly, which is fine since it seems that Aloe and Hatz are the same sprinting speed. I wouldn't have expected that. But Gooser seems to have led this Aloe over to this little cliff right here, to do a nice little wing beat and make it take some fall damage. Before then, actually trying to get in some damage, and I gotta say, I am very surprised that neither of the Rhamphs ended up actually getting hit by one of those attacks right there. Tanks is staying glued to the side no matter what attacks come in, because they just don't care. They're just gonna stay there and keep doing what they're doing, keeping that plague stacked up. But with two Hatzes coming after this Aloe, this ended up actually bringing back the Titan to come and try and help it. In which, while Tanks was staying concentrated on the Aloe, I decided to take my chances with the Titan. They didn't really react too heavily. They did maybe 1 or 2 bucks before I ended up hopping off, but I don't know if their knowledge that it was me had any effect on how they played here.
That was funny, you fat chud. It's good.
And so the main name of the game right here is kind of just trying to stall and, well, let Plague do its work, right? So it's kind of just trying to keep them in one spot and then just plague them to death. Just take our time. And so while Gooser is getting chased by this Titan, keeping the attention, we have Epic over in the back going after either the Aloe or the Latin. Either one works. And so this ends up continuing for a few minutes of chipping down the Aloe, getting the attention of the Titan, which then leaves an opening for the other Hats to then go after the Aloe. All while the entire time, they're still being plagued.
Okay. I go right through the tail. That's
And so with the amount of time spent plagued, they want to make their way towards Big Quill Lake. Though the Hatzigopteryx first want to actually try and get rid of the Aloe. And so the same tactic of 1 distracts and 1 attacks to try and get even more damage on the Aloe, and eventually it ends up dying. Though the only pain about this right here is that now the Titan can actually just eat freely. There's always just water to worry about for them though, thankfully. Though we are not the only ones with Rhamphs, they also had a Rhamph in which they ended up pouncing Gooser, and then Gooser ended up bucking them off, and then, well, killing them. Before then, also trying to go after their Latin, in which I must say this Latin was extremely slippery. They were pretty much just a nuisance the entire time. A very big distraction for the Hats. Now I want you to watch one thing. Me and Tanks are both plaguing this Titan, and...
Okay,
well, the
I
Titan,
think,
they end up actually
this,
letting Tanks jump off with
Titan's
no
gonna
issue.
make its way towards water
But
now.
then, as soon as I jump off, he walks backwards. Indo, I am watching you. I know. You waited for me. I am watching you. Please remember while watching that this is nothing serious. This is just a friendly fight. But with Lucky Feather popped, I decided to fly on ahead to Big Quill Lake just to pretty much just check out the water to see if there was any semi-aquatics in the area.
Right, I'll check if there's anything else in the water as well. No, it doesn't look like it from what I can see right now.
There was also some funny words spoken.
This Hunya guy PMO. Shariendo, but not really. Did he just say a bit turned into content? No.
I had to give a little Rhamph laugh for that. And so the Titan is currently drinking at the north end of this lake, all while still being plagued by Tanks this time, while the Hats are both getting their own water, along with also killing a Latin. So that's at least another quick meal. But now both the Hats actually need to recover some health, and so I decide to just keep an eye on the Titan while also just trying to stall it. Though I do have to be a little bit careful, as I actually do not have Lucky Feather, since it's still within the 5-minute range, since they ended up popping my Lucky Feather before. Thankfully, I am not the only Rhamph, as Tanks ended up hopping on because Tanks has been very, very devoted to plaguing, and I respect it so much. And so the Titan ends up making her over to the west side of Big Quill Lake, before then the Latin ends up coming after me. Though unfortunately for them, when dealing with a Rhamph, Mangle is not really a very useful thing, because a Rhamph can just end up pouncing the Latin at the time, and just using Bloodsucker to pretty much heal faster than Mangle does damage to it. Either way, while the Latin was coming after me, Gusa had ended up getting enough health back to then actually start going after the Titan again, making it chase him back into, further into Big Quill Lake, pretty much just spending more time being plagued. And so now the Titan is in a position to defend itself a little bit easier, so same tactic as before, one distracts, and another attacks for the Hats. Though this is where a Miragaya actually got involved, and this Miragaya was actually Terra. She ended up actually hopping on a while ago, but well, she wasn't in the mood to actually play as either Rhampharinkus or Hats or anything that's a flyer, and so she just decided, she wants to play Mirror. There's nothing really for me to say about it, as I don't like to tell my friends what to play. She'll end up getting played, the same as the Titan, because she's not in our group. But while the Titan seems to have been more focused on Terra, as that would be the easiest thing for the Titan to actually finish off, we have then just the Latin going after Gusa. And as I said before, this Latin was very slippery. Even when they would just take damage, and even when they were low health, they were just really, really making Gusa look funny inside of the replay, in my opinion. I really wish I had some Benny Hill music, just watching the chase the entire time. Because whenever Gusa went after the Latin, the Titan was very quick to try and get some damage on Gusa, because, well, he's just doing a good job of trying to help his teammates. And so with the Titan being plagued for so long, I'm sure it's starting to get a little bit low with its hunger, in which it immediately goes after Terra. Any damage is good damage in this situation for this Titan, since, hey, it's one less thing that you'll have to worry about later on. Especially with all the distractions around them right now, in which now they have a Rhamph that has come back and started buffing them for damage. But while all this was going on, there's one thing missing, and that is Epic. What's he doing? Well, he's pretty much at like one hit from anything. A fly could have farted on him and he would have died, so he's doing a little levitating trick right here to heal. And as for Cherry, she was sitting on a rock with the enemy Latin, and pretty much just ended up saying to Gusa, hey, the Latin is over here that you want to finish off. And while this cute little display of a Rhamph sitting next to a Latin is happening, well, here you go. That is pretty rough, and has also made a source of food for the Titan to eat, slowing down the starvation progress even further. Well, it's just gotta happen at times. So I'm still just trying to keep it maxed out with Plague as much as I can, but remember, this is day 1 of the Rhamph TLC, and of course we had Scatter removed, but I hadn't learned all the tricks yet.
Oh, come on! Ah! I hate it. I hate how it just gets stuck inside of the body whenever you dismount now. I hate that. I know, I think it's fair that they got rid of Scatter in trade for all of these fucking debuffs and shit like that.
So without my lucky feather, I don't feel comfortable in actually trying to Plague the Titan. Thankfully we have more than one Rhamph, who are pretty much just gonna take turns, just keeping the Plague up on this Titan. But there's not just this one Rhamph. There's also just another random couple of Rhamphs who also want to try Plaguing the Titan. And this ends up continuing for a minute or two before the Titan eventually walks towards the water to refill their thirst. Which is when Abyss ended up showing up on a Thalassadromius. I love the attempt, Abyss, but come on, that was funny as hell. And so this whole scene has pretty much turned into a recreation of a very old movie called The Birds, with pretty much another Thal showing up, trying to deal damage to the Titan, along with Terra trying to deal whatever damage she could to the Titan. Though then taking a heavy bite from the Titan, allowing it to use Feast to heal up a little bit faster. And it is looking pretty damn bleak for them right now. But, on the bright side for them, they're not going to be alone for very long. Because the Aloe is on its way back, and it's not very far. And they get a funny little ambush on Epic. And along with that, Terra had taken a bit too much damage to feel comfortable in staying around with the Aloe here, in which the Aloe just immediately chased Terra. And in the effort of not providing more food for the Titan to eat, both the hats ended up coming after the Aloe to try and get it away from Terra. All while us Rhamphs just tried to keep up the Plague on the Titan. And so, after the Aloe ends up reuniting with the Titan decides to head its way over into Green Hills in maybe the hope of finding a critter that it can eat. All while the Aloe ends up holding the backline. But the Aloe does eventually end up following the Titan, in which then it is chased by the hats. And they do end up getting a little surrounded by everything that is above the top of this canyon. But now we are starting to see the panic of hunger setting in for the Titan, as after a little longer of plaguing, they make their way further into Green Hills, and just before actually entering Green Hills, they make a very, very interesting choice, which was apparently to eat salt. Though I can't blame them,
God.
Nothing has been dying.
I can only...
And so while the Titan eats salt, the Aloe is trying either to defend the Titan or just try to maybe give a better option with maybe some food by trying to kill Gooser on hats. But now it really is a war of attrition right here. They kind of didn't have a choice. It was either die of starvation, or in this case, rush towards the river, or die of thirst. As in these moments, right now, they are actually taking health damage from thirst. They may have gotten a little bit of their hunger filled from eating that salt rock, but now the whole game is just distract them, maybe make them turn around every now and then, otherwise they end up just taking a bunch more damage from the hats. And so these are their last moments, being screamed at by little birds, being plagued to death, being nipped at by a Thal, and eventually it just comes to an end with one last nip on the tail from Abyss. Leaving just one last Aloe for the hats to finally finish off. It was a very interesting kind of encounter for me. I didn't expect the amount of things that joined in to join in, like the amount of Rhamphs that showed up at the end, that was ridiculous, and a bunch of the Thals as well. But I wouldn't say no to it. They all did very well in lasting as long as they did, and I'd say Yeah, they just got outnumbered way too heavily. In the end, though, I had a lot of fun.
Oh, hashtag turned into content. Oh no, no, no.
And so here we are at the end. So I've noticed that there's been quite a lot of discontentment for this update, and it's really easy to see why. It's obvious. There's things in the game that need a full kit or need changes, like Alio, Metri, Stego, Allo itself. And, you know, they're needing their TLC and they're needing a full kit, and then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, Rhamph gets a kit, you know, a kit rework, right? And as for my guess of why this has happened in the first place, let's take Allo, for example. Allo has been rumoured for eons that it's going to get some sort of grapple mechanic where it grabs onto a dino and slows it down, it does a bunch of attacks or bites. However it's going to work. Well, my guess is that it's just not ready for the game yet, right? So instead of, you know, working on this whole new mechanic, or putting this whole new mechanic in the game that's not ready, instead they ended up taking the mechanics that Rhamph had and then tweaking them to create new abilities or new passives. That way they've ended up taking things that already exist, combining them or merging them or tweaking them and creating something new, if you can call it that, right? So it does the same thing, but just in a slightly different way. But here's one of the main things that I think is actually more important, and that is that, well, nothing changes in these updates, okay? I've said this plenty of times in the past, that nothing changes in these updates. You know, you can give as many TLCs to all the dinos you want. It still won't change the gameplay loop that exists in-game, which is grow a dino, go to a certain spot on the map where everybody's at, and, well, sometimes you'll be able to have your fun, other times you won't. Sometimes you'll be able to have like an awesome fight over in that area, and other times you might just get mobbed by like a mega pack or a mix pack, or, you know, you might just come across like 9 players all playing semi-aquatics and you can't even interact with it at the time, right? What the players really need, I think, is just a change to the gameplay loop, or something to break it up, like the solo servers or the permadeath servers for officials. And this really helped for the people who wanted to play pretty much the same game, but have different outcomes and expectations of it. Along with that, same, like for me, for instance, I loved the game modes, like the King of the Hill, the Team Deathmatch. I really enjoyed them. I wouldn't even mind if they ended up putting them in the game as they were before. Even if they're not, like, perfect, right? I thought they were just a good way to just break up what I was doing each time that I played. It's like that saying, you know, you gotta refresh your palate a little bit. You know, if you're eating chicken every day, you're gonna get tired of eating chicken every day. So maybe try having a steak, or maybe a salad. Another example is that I've been playing a bunch of Baldur's Gate lately. It's been pretty difficult to get me off of Baldur's Gate. I've been loving it so much. You know, Hexblade Paladin Warlock combo, love it. That's another thing I would advise. Try out a different game as well. You know, it may sound horrible, you know, I make path videos and telling people to try out a different game, but if you keep doing the same thing every day, you're gonna get sick of it, and then the more you get sick of it, the easier you are to get, well, in lack of a better word, pissed off with it. But yeah, I mean, I would love those game modes, as I said. I loved King of the Hill. Either way, I don't want to be too negative, but I don't want to glaze the game either. It has its problems, but it also has its boons. But most of all, it just needs, you know, gameplay changes, something to refresh your palate. Either way, I've rambled on long enough. I hope you've all enjoyed, and I hope you all have a lovely day. Bye.